Well, welcome to 3-in-1, a Scripture Insight. Here we explore the depth of Scripture, the nature of truth, and the deeper questions of life through a perspective that connects faith, wisdom, and understanding. I'm glad you're here.
Me? I mean, really think about it. It's a huge question, one we've been asking forever. And today, we're going to get into it by looking at the very code that writes our existence.
When we try to answer that, we usually land in one of two very different camps. One answer is all about the physical world, right? The actual building blocks of our bodies. But the other one, it points to something we can't really touch, something you might call a soul or an essence or maybe even a kind of operating system.
Okay, so let's break this down. On one side, you've got this scientific blueprint. This view says, look, our identity is physically hard-coded right into our DNA. It's the instruction manual for life written in biology. Then, on the other side, you've got this idea of a spiritual essence, that who we are comes from an immaterial soul, this kind of divine software. We're going to see how these two big ideas clash and maybe even connect in this new age of genetic engineering.
So here's our game plan. We'll start with the code of life itself. Then we're going to dive right into the wild, super controversial story of the world's first gene-edited babies. From there, we'll get into the mind-bending idea of software that runs on top of our genetic hardware. After that, we'll explore this concept of an original human operating system, and we'll wrap it all up by tackling a massive question for our time. Who actually gets to write the rules?
All right, first things first, we have to get our heads around the science. I mean, we need to understand the code before we can even begin to talk about hacking it. So at its core, DNA is basically a biological hard drive. It's an information storage system that is so unbelievably dense, it's hard to even imagine. Seriously, a tiny bit of your DNA could, in theory, store every bit of data in the entire world. But what's really wild is that all of us as humans are 99.8% genetically identical. That tiny little 0.2% difference, that's everything that makes us all so unique. Now, if DNA is the code, then gene editing, well, that's the power to rewrite that code. And we're talking about something specific here, human germline genome editing. This means making intentional changes to our fundamental blueprint that can be passed down through generations. And let me tell you, this is not science fiction anymore. It's already happened. And that brings us to one of the most explosive scientific stories of this century. It's the story of a scientist named He Jiankui, and the moment the world learned about the first gene-edited babies. The way this all went down was straight out of a movie. I mean, it happened so fast. On November 25th, 2018, the news just drops, not in some stuffy journal, but in an AP story. At the same time, He Jiankui's lab uploads these slick videos to YouTube. The next day, there's a total scramble at a science summit in Hong Kong. Then 2 days later, he is actually on stage presenting his work to a completely shocked world. And then poof. Just like that, he vanishes from the city. But here's where it gets really complicated. Listen to his own reason for doing it. He didn't see himself as some rogue villain. In his own words, from that very summit, he said he felt proud. He truly believed he was being compassionate, that he was just using this new tech to help a family struggling with HIV. It just goes to show you how tangled the ethics of all this really are. The blowback from the global scientific community was immediate and absolutely brutal. I mean, it was almost total condemnation. The experiment was done in secret, jumping way ahead of any ethical guidelines. He was basically kicked out of the global science community, and a lot of leaders called for making sure that any scientist who tried this again would see it as a suicidal career move. Okay, so hacking the permanent hard code of DNA is one thing. But guess what? That's not even the whole story. There's also the software that runs on top of it, and this is where we get into this incredible field called epigenetics. This concept is just amazing. Epigenetics is this layer of control that sits above your genes. It doesn't actually change your DNA letters, but it changes how your body reads that DNA. Think of it like a director telling the actors, your genes, how to deliver their lines, whether to whisper them or shout them. So just to be super clear, that underlying code, the actual sequence of A's, C's, G's, and T's in your DNA, that's fixed. That's your hardware. But, and this is a really big but, how that hardware gets used, which genes get turned on, how loud they are, that is constantly changing. That's the software, and it can be reprogrammed. Yeah, a really simple way to picture it is as a control panel right on top of your DNA.
These epigenetic things act like light switches that can just turn a gene on or off. And they can also act like volume knobs, turning a gene's activity way up or way down. And this is where those two big ideas we started with come right back into play. From a scientific view, stuff like your diet, your environment, your lifestyle, they can all actively reprogram the system. But from a more spiritual perspective, things like trauma are seen as able to turn on negative inherited traits, what some people might even call family curses, while things like prayer and faith are believed to be able to change that same gene expression for healing.
This rabbit hole goes even deeper. So we've got hardware and we've got software. But what about the operating system itself? I mean, what about consciousness? What about the self?
Well, from a neurology standpoint, our feeling of being one single person is kind of a story we tell ourselves. There's this thing in our brain's left hemisphere they call the interpreter. What it does is constantly create stories to make sense of our actions, a lot of the time making up reasons for things we did without even thinking about it. Now, let's contrast that with a theological idea of our original human OS. In this view, humanity, think Adam in the Garden of Eden, was designed with a perfect operating system. He had this thing called instant comprehension, an intuitive grasp of what things were, which let him, for instance, name millions of animals almost instantly.
And here is a pretty startling number that comes from that perspective. The idea is that maybe as much as 95% of our original God-given brain function is now shut down. It's a suggestion that we are all operating at just a tiny fraction of what we were designed for, with all this incredible potential just lying dormant inside our original operating system.
So, whether we're talking about editing our DNA or trying to unlock some lost part of our minds, we keep landing on the same core idea. Humans are becoming designers. We're designing intelligent systems, and there's no better example of that right now than the biggest technology of our time, artificial intelligence.
And when we talk about programming AI, there's this really important difference we have to get. There are kind of two types of language. First, you have public language. This is stuff that's objective, measurable, something you can program, like profit and loss, right? You can put a number on it. But then there's personal language, and that's all subjective. It's about values that you can't really measure, like justice or happiness. And this, right here, is the biggest challenge. An AI, at least how we build them now, can only really work in that public, programmable world. It can crunch data like nobody's business, but it can't understand what justice feels like or what happiness really is. Its purpose isn't its own. It's whatever its programmer gave it. And that puts this huge, inescapable weight of responsibility right back on us, the human creators, because the machines we're building can't possibly grasp the moral ideas we want them to live by.
And so that leaves us right here with the biggest question of all. From the DNA of our kids to the algorithms that are starting to run our world, we are becoming the programmers of life and intelligence. So the question we all have to ask ourselves now is, what purpose should we write into the code?
Thank you for being here. This is more than knowledge. It's an invitation to see, to understand, and to be transformed. Until next time, keep seeking truth.